So here's a show I've been wanting to talk about for a while. Camp Camp. Rooster Teeth's summer camp show. Now, I've been wanting to talk about this show for a long time. Specifically, since Season 2's finale originally premiered on Rooster Teeth's website. So, almost 2 years. Now, the episode I want to talk about is Parents' Day, the Season 2 finale. But I can't talk about what I love about the episode without context. So we're going to have to take a look at the entire series up to the end of Season 2 because I don't have any footage from Season 3, and Season 4 just started, so I'll get to those eventually, but for now, let's take a look at Camp Camp. So the series begins by introducing us to the two most important characters, Max and David.
I'm not here to make friends, David. I'm here because camp is where kids are sent when their parents don't want to deal with them.
So, these two are polar opposites. Max is a pessimist who only sees the problems in the world. He speaks without filter and wants nothing more than to leave the prison of a camp he was sent to. The entire first episode, Max is trying to leave the camp by stealing the bus. And in later episodes, Max tries to break David's optimistic personality. So, David is the complete opposite of Max. He's the optimist that wants nothing more than to make everyone happy. While tending to be a bit of a pushover, David does tend to be the older brother of the camp. Along with Gwen, the two camp counselors try to keep order as Max crafts chaos. Now, the episodes follow Max, Neil, and Nikki as the three live out their summer in Camp Campbell. The show is a slice of life with amazing continuity. Everything that happens in the show has a reason. I watched through the show a few times, and almost nothing seems to be left to the wayside. In the Christmas review, I showed a clip from episode 2 and one from the season 2 finale, and they were building on a joke from the beginning of the series. 3 seasons in and going to the 4th one, any plot points that have been dropped so far, I believe will come back. Because every time some comment comes back with any sort of payoff, you have reasonable expectation that any comment made by any character will come back. On top of this, some of the side characters like Jasper return for some of the better episodes. Take a look at the 2 Halloween episodes. They both bring back tertiary characters and parody horror movies. Maybe in October I'll talk about the Halloween episodes a little bit more. Let's give a quick rundown of the campers. Let's start with Space Kid. He's an aspiring astronaut who is the nephew of Neil Armstrong. He's gullible and not very bright, but he does know a lot about space.
Oh, you must be counting the dwarf planets, too. That gets pretty tricky. 8, plus the 5 known dwarf planets, plus possibly hundreds of others.
Then there's Dov. He's the German-American art kid who... I think Nikki said it best.
Plus, he really looks like Hitler.
Harrison is a magic kid who is probably a wizard of some sort. Now, you would think Space Kid would be the opposite of Neil, but he isn't. Harrison is. While Neil is logical and scientific, Harrison can be illogical and more whimsical. Harrison also can do quite a few impossible things.
What did you do to me?
Harrison butts head with Neil, but that's not the only one. Harrison also butts head with the other magic kid, Nares. Nares is a D&D nerd that lives in her own magical world. She often uses dice when doing things and gives random objects abilities. Next up is Erin. She's the cool kid that skateboards and has 2 cool gay FBI dads. That's about it from her. Now, like most shows revolving around kids, there's a bully character. This is Nerf, the self-aware bully that seems to know how he got to where he is but is unable to get out of his situation. Last side camper is Preston. He's an over-the-top theater kid. Out of all Camp Campbell campers, the one I like least would be Aaron, but Preston is a close second. His gimmick of theater can be funny from time to time, but is oftentimes annoying. When played for laughs, it can be incredibly funny, but when played straight, it doesn't work that well. So now let's talk about the characters I think of as the main characters. I already talked about Max and David, so let's take a look at the other 3, starting with Gwen. Gwen, like Max, is a pessimist. She hates her job and is the adult among a bunch of chaotic children, and David. She's generally moody and really likes reality TV and supernatural love stories. The final characters I'm going to talk about without talking about an episode are Neil and Nikki. I said a little bit about Neil, so let's expand on what I said. Neil is a smart introvert. He wanted to spend his summer in an air-conditioned lab for a science camp, but ended up at Camp Campbell instead. Nikki, on the other hand, is an energetic and adventurous kid that loves nature, and she acts as a comic relief character. Now, normally I would hate Nikki because you can classify her as a comic relief character. She tends to act on impulse and gets quite a few jokes because of it. But what helps is that Nikki isn't the only comic relief character. Outside of, well, Max, everyone can be classified as comic relief. And because Nikki has a personality where she loves nature and hates town, she stays likable and is very rarely annoying. Now that we know the characters, let's take a look at the episodes. In the first episode, after the pilot, the cast ends up looking for a mascot after Max flings the previous one into the woods. The third episode, we meet the other two camps and get a don't be sexist moral. It's a half good, half bad episode because we meet the rival camp, the Wood Scouts, which are run by an incompetent leader. I love the Wood Scouts when they appear. The jokes are almost always funny. And my favorite one is Snake, who is voiced by Dante Bosco, followed by the ever-silent Petrol. They are some of the funniest characters in the show, but that's elaborated more on in the third season. So I'll talk about that some other time. Then there's the Flower Scout girls. I'll explain why I hate them later. The fourth episode is the narrative episode. To be honest, before the fourth episode, I didn't know she existed, and the best part is Max creating an uprising, and then they blow a hole in the mess hall.
I did this! Come after me!
In episode 5, Max and friends travel to an island in the middle of the lake after the quartermaster warns them to stay away. This is where we meet Jasper, who they drop hints about him being dead, and we get confirmation later in the series. While they're on the island, Nikki and Neil are trying to prove to Max that there is something that can scare him. The sixth episode puts Dolph in charge of the camp, and Neil is missing, and that's all I want to say about the episode. The seventh episode has Preston putting on a play he wrote, and Max steals David's phone and causes quite a bit of chaos. Also, the Flower Scout girls appear. Episode 8 has Max almost breaking David with his antics, and David goes off into town on a day off where he starts getting supplies. Max and friends follow and come to the conclusion that David is going to kill them. Episode 9 is the Nerf episode where we learn about his backstory and how he got to where he is. Episode 10 is the one where Harrison and Neil are at odds ends and fighting over whether or not magic is real. Neil spends the entire episode trying to explain a magic trick, and Harrison recruits Nikki to help him freak Neil.
His mind has been freaked too hard!
The 11th episode pits the three camps against each other in Camporee. Camp Campbell makes a bet with the Wood Scouts, and Campbell wins. The season 1 finale is a special episode. In this episode, David tries to increase everyone's love of the camp by introducing the Order of the Sparrow. Anyone inducted into the order will get a prize, and in order to get the prize, the campers have to follow 3 simple rules.
Seriously, do good every day?
So the campers go out of their way to show David that they're all nice and love nature. They very quickly start annoying David, and Max comes in to rain on David's parade.
David, they don't actually care.
Max gets everyone to reveal the prize, which causes everyone to start questioning David.
Is it a job well done? Because that's a fucking cop-out, David! It's a bonfire!
When David snaps, everyone leaves except for Max, who stays behind to tell David that no one cares.
No one gives a shit, David. Nobody wants to be here. Life sucks, and we live in a world of desensitized, apathetic assholes. Why don't you just get with the program and stop giving a shit?
You're right. Times have changed. Whether I like it or not, the campers don't care. Gwen doesn't care. Even the founder of this place has better things to do. That's why I'll never stop trying. Because somebody fucking has to.
This is a moment where Camp goes from a good show to a great one. While we had jokes throughout the episode that are funny, we also get this emotional scene that gives David character development. His optimistic personality is basically in spite of everyone telling him to give up, and no matter what, he'll keep trying. And I respect that. So David fails to light the bonfire and gets hurt trying to light it. When David comes to, he learns that Max got everyone back to light the bonfire, and we end on this.
There's a place I know that's tucked away, a place where you and I can stay.
Oh wait, we end on this.
Hey, Max, how'd you start a fire with wet wood anyway?
I'm not an idiot, David. I used gasoline.
Woo! Do it again! Do it again!
So season 2 begins with Gwen finding money, and she and David hire a new camp counselor. This counselor happens to be a cultist, and Max, Neil, and Nikki are the only ones who realize this fact. Now, how they get out of it is so great, I don't want to ruin the episode. Go watch it. In the second episode, Neil builds a computer out of spare parts, and in an attempt to be left alone, he creates a chat client that becomes sentient and tries to escape into the internet. In the third episode, we have a plot where Neris and Harrison are fighting over who is more magical as they try to stop a volcano from erupting. The fourth episode introduces Jeremy Farts, a new camper who appears at the worst time as Camp Campbell starts competition with the Wood Scouts where the camp has to be nice for a whole day or they lose their best camper. The next episode has David telling Max and friends a story of when he was a camper. We also learned that David was like Max and he had a friend, Jasper, who was a happy David-like camper. In the sixth episode of the season, we meet the quartermaster's sister. I think that's all I'm allowed to say on YouTube.
What the hell hell just happened?
And where's your quarter sister?
She is where she's meant to be. 2 down, 1 to go.
The 7th episode, we find out that David has a girlfriend who dumps him. The rest of the episode is David, sad, and the camp trying to get the two back together, and eventually the Flower Scout girls get involved. The following episode is a Gwen episode. She's trying to get a new job, and Max finds out. He blackmails her, and we see how far she's willing to go to keep David from finding out.
Gwen? It's okay. I'm lucky in that I'm already where I want to be. Working at Camp Campbell is all I've ever dreamed of. If you don't feel the same way, if you hear something else calling to you, you have to go after it.
In the 9th episode, the camp takes care of platypus eggs. That's kind of the whole episode. In episode 10, Max tries to get Space Kid to hate space, and while Max is trying to do that, the rest of the camp is staging a space launch. Episode 11. The worst episode of Camp Camp. This episode follows the Flower Scout girls while they sell cookies to people. Standard episode, right? Well, the cookies have drugs in them, but the girls don't know that. They think it's sugar. So why is this episode the worst? Well, because the 3 characters we follow are the most uninteresting characters in the show. There's the leader, the crazy one, and then the one that gets a personality in the 3rd season. The leader is your standard popular girl that's a grade A snob, the type of character that everyone hates with little sense of self-awareness. The crazy one is also the stupid one, and she loves Neil. She's also the only one with a name that I can remember. Tabby. With an I. Then there's the final girl. In season 3, we find out that she has 2 eye colors and she's smart. I like her from season 3 on, but before that, they're all bad characters. Now we go from the worst episode of the series to the best episode of the series. Parents' Day. So this episode begins with David and Gwen announcing that the campers' parents are coming. Max states that his parents aren't going to show up, and Campbell pops in. The parents appear and we get to meet them all. For a time, I'll only talk about Neil and Nikki's parents. Nikki's mom is a gold digger, and Neil's dad is a teacher, and Neil is embarrassed by him. Max cheerfully makes another comment about how his parents aren't coming, and we meet Aaron's dads.
Allow me to introduce myself. I'm Agent Miller, and this is my partner, Agent Miller.
Oh, thank God. You're just gay.
We're not sure how you came into possession of such vital Russian intelligence, but your country thanks you.
So, Nerf's mother points out that the camp doesn't appear as advertised, and Campbell now has to prove that the camp isn't a scam.
Camp Campbell covers all of the wonderful camps you signed your children up for. If my words aren't enough to convince you, then I'll prove it.
Good, because you're gonna have to, or we're taking you in.
Campbell puts Max, Gwen, and David together as a family for the episode, and we go outside to where we meet the rest of the families. We get a few funny jokes and eventually get to Space Kid. Max is trying to light Space Kid on fire and is asking about his parents.
Oh, my parents couldn't make it.
Oh, really? That sucks.
Max actually shows sympathy here for Space Kid and takes a different tone than he normally has. Then Space Kid says his uncle is here and Max traps him under a cardboard box. The camp then goes to dinner where we have a few more funny jokes. Max also flings mashed potatoes at Preston's grandmother, and we get this moment with Gwen and Max.
Would you quit being such a shit today?
What are you gonna do, Mom? Send me to a summer camp where you don't have to deal with me?
So Jeremy's parents appear and it's time for the final activity.
Time for our final activity! Everybody out!
All the campers have to show what they learned, and Campbell tells David that he has to make sure that everything is perfect. David then asks what Max was signed up for, and he states that it doesn't matter. Gwen goes off and gets Max's file while the campers show off their talents.
Max, this is important.
This is stupid!
Well, everyone else is having fun. We'll be a happy little family, I promise.
So Gwen appears and we finally learn what Max was signed up for.
We can do this.
I don't want to do this!
Max, that is it. Why do you always have to bring everyone else down instead of trying just a little bit to have fun? Now let's all put on a happy face, go out there, and show everyone just how great you are at...
I told you, I didn't care. Just make something up so we can get this over with.
This moment speaks for itself.
I didn't know.
So, I'm not one to get emotional at a lot of things. I know people who would tear up at a lot of things, like the end of Season 13 to RVB or Pyrrha's death in Ruby. This is one of the 3 things that actually really hits me. The others are the end of Digimon Tamers and Kuro-sensei's death in Assassination Classroom. But those are things that I'll get to eventually. So, David and Gwen skip out on the camp and take Max to a pizzeria. And David has a moment with Max.
Why are we here? What about Campbell's big show?
That's stupid. You shouldn't have to pretend for anyone. I'm sorry, Max. I try to always see the good in things. Pretending like things are okay when they're not doesn't help anything. I'm sorry your parents don't care enough, Max. You have every right to be angry. You deserve to be happy. And I hope you can find that here at camp.
Life sucks sometimes, but at least there's pizza.
This is the moment that made Camp one of my favorite shows, and my favorite Western show. This episode was built up from the first scene of the first episode, and I can't give it justice. So much of this episode is funny, and then it just switches and becomes emotional on the same level of early Simpsons episodes like Lisa's Substitute. If anything, I think Camp does their emotional scenes better than most shows. The show is funny, and when it wants to be serious, it hits its mark every time. The only bad episode is the 11th episode of Season 2, and I think that was purposeful. Since the best episode comes out right after the worst episode, there's a contrast that makes Parents' Day stand out even more. Oddly enough, Cookin' Cookies strengthens Parents' Day. Camp is a funny, well-animated show. The art style is charming, and just looking at it, you can tell it's supposed to be summer. And with one bad episode, and probably my favorite episode of any show, I have to give this show a 9 out of 10. I think it's that good. I would recommend Camp to anyone. Thanks for watching. If you want to support me, subscribe and hit the notification bell. Check out my Every Review playlist. And if you want to see these reviews early, I have a Patreon. It's only $1 to see everything early.